The case against Boston Marathon bombing suspect Dzhokhar Tsarnaev has forced some capital punishment opponents to stop and think. Among them, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, who today authorized prosecutors to seek the death penalty, despite the fact that he, like many Massachusetts residents, personally oppose it. Since the federal death penalty was reinstated in 1988, it's only been sought in a couple hundred cases, and only 3 people have been executed, among them the Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh. Now, Attorney General Eric Holder has determined that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is eligible, writing in a statement, "The nature of the conduct at issue and the resultant harm compel this decision." Dzhokhar and his brother Tamerlan are accused of setting off 2 bombs at the Boston Marathon finish line, killing 3 people and injuring hundreds. They are also accused of gunning down MIT police officer Sean Collier. Tamerlan died in a gun battle with Watertown police while Dzhokhar was captured a day later. Assuming the case goes to trial, today's ruling means a jury will determine whether Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is sentenced to death. So what impact does this decision have on the case against Tsarnaev? I'm joined now by Jeremy Sternberg. He's a former federal prosecutor and a partner at the law firm of Holland & Knight. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Well, as you know, Eric Holder has only recommended the death penalty in just a handful of cases since he's been, since his tenure in office as Attorney General. Did it surprise you in this case that he did?
I was not surprised in this case, even though he has publicly said that he personally opposes the death penalty. He has authorized it in some cases, and it seemed to me in this case it would have been very, very difficult for him given the nature of the crime, the extraordinary number and type of victims, as well as the fact that here in Massachusetts there's also the Gary Sampson case that has recently come back from the appellate court and is slated to be retried in the penalty phase for a death penalty.
He's the only person still in Massachusetts who's on the federal death penalty. There's 58 other people in other states, but Gary Lee Sampson, and that may likely never happen, as you point out. But the death penalty here, I mean, interestingly, after the Boston Marathon bombing, there was a poll taken of Bostonians, Boston residents, and they personally opposed it for Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. And I think not because of a sympathy factor, but because they not necessarily believe it's the right punishment, you know, that living the rest of his natural life, he's only 20 years old, might be a more severe punishment.
What's interesting, here in Massachusetts, I think the polls have shown that about 1/3 of Boston area residents favor the death penalty here. I think even among the victims, some of whom have come out in public, there's not unanimity to seek the death penalty here. I think that's a reflection in many ways of where we live. Massachusetts as a state has not had the death penalty for very many years, and the state clearly has a population that, unlike other parts of the country, is not as rabid about the death penalty.
You know, I was doing the research today. I have to say, I was shocked at how few people the federal government has put to death since it was reinstated in 1988. Only 3 people. Why? You know, it took them only 5 years, I should say, to put Timothy McVeigh to death. He was tried in Oklahoma and then transferred to Terre Haute, Indiana, and put to death there. They do things quicker in some of those states, but what is the delay?
Well, I think the Sampson case is actually a decent example of what can happen. He was found to warrant the death penalty in, I think, 2003.
2001, I think it was, but maybe you're right.
I think the crimes were in 2001.
That's
he was tried in 2003. And here we are in 2014, and the appellate court has reversed the death penalty for the time being. And he's going to be retried, or at least retried for the penalty phase. So one of the things that illustrates is the appeals take a very long time. Some of the cases are after the death penalty has been imposed. Some defendants die, some defendants plead out to other resolutions. Different things happen along the way, but the death penalty appellate process is, as many people would describe it, kind of endless.
So take us through the steps as an attorney. When you're in the voir dire of a jury, you have to ask each individual if they would be, how does it work? Are you opposed to the death penalty? Would you be okay with it? What kind of a question do you ask potential jurors, given the fact that they're going to have to decide in the end whether Dzhokhar Tsarnaev gets the death penalty?
So just to be clear, I have not tried a capital
no, I'm
case.
asking you as a lawyer, though.
I think the standard is actually interesting. Attorney General Holder, who has publicly said he's personally against the death penalty but has made a number of decisions over the years to go forward with it, is kind of the perfect juror. The jurors that both sides are looking for are people who, whatever their personal views are about it as a moral or ethical matter, can put those aside and fairly and objectively apply the facts to the case, and if it's appropriate, put aside their personal views and impose that penalty if they find that the evidence supports it.
And if somebody flat out says, look, I oppose the death penalty, that would be an automatic exclusion.
If that potential juror said, I oppose it and under no set of circumstances could I impose it, then they would not be qualified to sit.
So one of the speculations about this trial before it's even started is that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev might plead guilty in exchange for life in prison with no chance of parole, rather than now face the death penalty. In your opinion, is that a likelihood?
Well, a plea is always a possibility. I have no visibility into what, if any, plea negotiations there have been. There is a procedure in these capital cases for a defendant to decide to plead guilty after the Attorney General has recommended that the death penalty at least go forward. So it's not foreclosed just because the Attorney General has said that the penalty phase can include the death penalty here.
Yeah, no, there's no guarantee that the jury will decide to do it.
Correct. Yeah. And in a number of cases.
No, but might he just preempt the whole thing and say, you know what, I'll take my chances that they are going to vote for the death penalty and I'll just plea out here?
He can try that, but there's no guarantee that the government won't say, that's fine, you've now pled guilty, but for the penalty phase, we're still seeking the death penalty.
So trial is still a ways away, would you guess?
Clearly, yes. Hard to predict when it will be, but not anytime soon.
These things always take a long time. All right, Jeremy Sternberg, thanks so much for coming with your insight. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.